my name's Vicky. I work for Somewhere House and Somewhere House Somerset, and have done for, is it 17 or 18 years? I forget now. It's about
Long
around
time.
that. It's so long, I've kind of forgotten how long it is. So I've worked for the organisation for a long time. I'm kind of many. I feel like I'm many people sometimes, or I have many roles. In my personal life, I'm a mum. I've got grown-up children, which is still new to me, even though my eldest is 25, and that shouldn't be a new thing to say. I think I kind of take it from the youngest one up, if you know what I mean. So yeah, they're all living their lives and doing their own thing now, almost. So there's that. I've got a partner who lives a long, long way away in Scotland, in Edinburgh. That kind of just sort of happened. It was, yeah. But there's something good about that. I get to go away to lovely Edinburgh every so often, once a month at the moment, and get to enjoy the sights and sounds of Edinburgh.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a lovely city. I like it there. What else? Yeah, so I'm a partner, I'm a mum, I'm a daughter. There's my mum as well. I sadly lost my dad about 13, 14 years ago, maybe no longer than that, a bit longer. So yeah, what else?
How long have you lived in the area? All your life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've lived here in Burnham for the majority of my life. I started out when I was tiny. I was actually born in Taunton in Musgrove Park. Yeah. And when I had my children, 2 of them I had at home, but the first 2 I had in hospital. I was actually probably on the same ward that my mum would have been in, because it's ancient.
It's a very old hospital, isn't it?
It's from primeval times. So yeah, so that was a bit strange to think, wow, my mum probably was on this ward at some point, and yeah, in some ways it's nice as well. So yeah, I've lived in Burnham for quite a long time. I started out life as Tiny and Puriton, which isn't that far away, is it? No. Let's face it, it's literally up the road. And then actually it was Willavington and then Puriton. Willavington for seconds of my life, and then Puriton, and then my parents moved to Highbridge, and we lived in Highbridge for a while, and then we moved to just in front of the big school, King Alfred School on Burnham Road, and lived there for the rest of my childhood. So
do you know what, I didn't know that about you, and yet I've known you for 18 years.
Yeah. And there's another interesting fact about that house, the one on Burnham Road, is that it's been well, not anymore because my mum sold it, but before she sold it, it was in our family and my dad's family since it was built.
Wow.
From 2 years where it went to another lady. I couldn't tell you who that person was. I did know, but I've forgotten it. And yeah, so it was in our family for a long time. So it was a bit strange it being sold. It was kind of like an end of an era. It's like the Ming dynasty coming to an end,
Did it feel sad though?
No, not really, because I think I knew it was right for my mum. I don't ever get attached to bricks and mortar. I get attached to things, but not houses as such. I suppose the strongest attachment I had to a house was my grandparents' house up in Tatenhill in Derbyshire. And that, it was called Robin Hood Cottage. Oh, it was a beautiful little cottage, but I always thought it was right on the end. It was a terrace, an end of terrace, and up the side of the house was all the gardens that my grandma created, and my grandpa, they called it the dugout. So he dug out like a slot into because it was on a bit of a hill, and he parked his car in there. So he made that himself, and their garden was like, it was like an amazing adventure going into their garden. So there was a pond, there were vegetables being grown, there were greenhouses, orchard at the end, there was a chicken coop as well. We used to go and collect the eggs. And so when my grandpa died and my grandma eventually moved out of that house, I felt that loss. Yeah. It was really strange, and I still feel it now. It's the only house I feel like I've had an attachment to. And I didn't really spend that much time there, but I did used to go and stay with my grandparents as a kid over half term. Usually it was half terms, February and October, so that my mum could work and she knew that we were being looked after, and it gave my other grandparents a rest from looking after me. Yeah, it's really funny actually. I'm just thinking of all these weird things. I used to have this strange habit of tape recording things in the house. I remember one time I was doing my piano practice, because I learned to play the piano from age sort of 5, 6 years old. And my grandfather, I woke him up, my granddad, he came, and Granddad Alfred, and he was quite a grumpy man, bless him. And he goes, will you just shut up? I'm trying to sleep. And I've got it all on tape.
That's amazing.
Granddad, I need to practice. Oh, sorry, I've got a phone in the background. I won't answer it, I promise.
Do you still play piano now?
A little bit, yeah.
Amazing.
There has been a bone of contention here. Okay, yeah. We have a piano at Somewhere House itself, and I didn't know that Vicky could play the piano. And we've always said, oh, we do music groups, we do this or we do that. And Vicky has never come forward until it was about 6 or 7 years ago, wasn't it? And I went, you never told me you could play the piano. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I can play one piece that I can actually remember, and and that's Für Elise. I can remember how to play the first bit. I can't remember the second part of the movement because it's a bit too complicated for me now. I'd really need to sit down and practice a lot to be able to play like I used to. But I did a lot of festivals in the town. So Highbridge Festival, every year I was entered, and I did okay. I wasn't. There was always a bit of competition between people and different music tutors, so you get to know who's tutoring who, and I always thought it was a bit pointless. It was like, well, why do I need to be better than them?
But that's you, isn't it? That is the kind of person you are.
Yeah, I always felt that it was great to come together and play. I used to really enjoy listening to other people play, but I always thought that the competition side of it was a bit, I don't know, I just thought it was unnecessary.
Do you want to tell people what you do for an actual living? I mean, I know what you've said, but you actually haven't said, if you see what I'm saying.
Oh, I know. I'm good at that, aren't I? I'm good at saying things and not actually telling anybody anything of substance. So I'm a qualified counsellor, and I feel very proud of that. Yeah, and it's taken me a long time to allow myself to say that as well, and really mean it. I do feel very proud of what I do. So I qualified back in 2010. I was telling somebody this the other day. I can't remember who it was. And then I realised, wow, 13 years nearly.
A long time, yeah.
I've actually had the certificate that says you are a qualified counsellor. So yeah, it does feel like a long time.
Because you qualified at the same time as Dave, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I think my certificate might be a bit later than his, because it just took me ages to get my stuff sorted.
Really? Am I surprised by that? No.
Not allowed to swear, am I?
No. I get told off when I swear, so you can't.
Yeah, so November 2010 was the year that I qualified, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done, qualifying to be a counsellor, because I didn't mean I had to be a counsellor. It's funny, isn't it? I wanted this so bad, and then I got it, and then I was like, oh, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And I think it's just that sense of responsibility and expectation. But I suppose going into it and seeing it as learning rather than knowing was a positive for me. So once I kind of got my head around that, I felt much better about it. And
do you think that's why there's a dropout rate with counsellors, where they go and do their qualification, they get their bits of paper, and then think, actually, do you know what, I don't want to do this job?
Yeah, probably. But also I think people's lives change as well, don't they, sometimes? And some people do it maybe just for something to do, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but I suppose with certain lines of work, you've got to really want to and love doing what you do. I don't think it's for people that actually don't want to do it. Teaching's another one. Having met some people, you think, why are you a teacher? And you don't
and you hate kids, but you want to be a teacher.
Like
what's that about?
Yeah, and it was more a friend of a friend, but I remember having this conversation, and you could just tell how much she really didn't like children. And I was thinking, that's an odd career choice for someone that doesn't like children. So yeah, I did try going into teaching a little bit, and I felt it wasn't for me. And it's not that I don't like children, I just didn't want to work with children in that setting. So I enjoy working with children now. I've got a friend coming to visit. I might have to edit this bit out. We've got Sue. Hello, Sue.
Hi,
Hello,
Sue,
Sue.
who's also one of our counsellors.
So also for the charity, you also are our coordinator.
Yeah, I quite like that title. I like being in control. That's why I like it. If I feel in control, I think that's great. Yeah, and I it's quite a big role now, because when I started it was just me, and then there was one other, and then another, and now we've got, well, we're losing a few, but I think at one point there was 13. So we've gone down a bit now because a few people are moving on, and although we haven't, 2 new people that have just joined as well. So
but the number of clients we're seeing is staggering now.
Yeah, I know. I looked at the waiting list the other day and thought, oh, there's really not many people on there, and there's hardly anyone waiting in the general inquiry queue to move up once I've done my bits with it. And then I said, I was talking to you about it, wasn't I, Anne? I was like, I know it's going to change. I know it will change, and it has. There's now a few more on there. So tomorrow, that's on my job list to do, because I got a bit of time.
Do you find that that's, do you like the variety of not just doing the, like the counselling work, but also coordinating stuff and things like that?
Yeah, I like the administration. Although if I was to work in a job that was purely administration, I think
you'd be bored.
I'd get bored with it. I'd have to have a lot of fun people around me for it not to be boring. So this is a win-win for me. I've got lots of fun people around me, and it's not, the work's not boring. So
yeah, because you have got a lot, because you do stuff in the rehab as well. So you have a day a week there, don't you, and an evening or a night that you do. So that's also something completely different to what you do on other days.
And it's also been reflected on my other jobs as well. I tend to, whenever I do a job, it always seems to be, it's never one thing. I never, I'm not just in one department. I kind of spread myself around. Perhaps you want to edit that out. I seem to like the variety.
Variety of the spice of life, Vicky, remember?
Definitely, yeah.
So how do you feel? I mean, bearing in mind that, you are working with people with mental health and all the time, whether you're in the rehab or whether you're there, how does that impact on you as an individual?
I have to be really careful how I look after myself. And I've learnt the hard way that you can't just load yourself up and then expect to carry that load indefinitely. So through the pandemic, which seems like forever ago, but it was only 2 or 3 years ago. So when the first lockdown happened and we were all still working from home, and I was seeing, so many clients every week, and that in itself wasn't a problem. But I think because there was nothing else to kind of soak that up, really, I felt like I was just doing a circular tour of Burnham every week, psychologically, but also physically as well. That didn't help, but also coupled with the beginnings of perimenopausal symptoms which came along, which really didn't help. So all those 3 things kind of happened at once, and I realized by the end of that, towards the end of 2020, that something had to change, and that's when I really had to take notice of what my body was saying. So I've really learned, more so in my adult life. I'd never really learned this as a child or as a young adult, to listen to what my body is saying and listen to my internal voice. I was always, kind of just get on with it, keep going and find something else to distract myself. And I suppose I wasn't even finding things. It was quite easy to distract myself because I got 4 kids to look after. I had a job, there was a lot going on in my life, and a big house to look after as well. It's not a palace or a mansion, but it's still quite a large place to look after. So that meant that my brain kind of seemed to stop working, and I just couldn't figure out kind of what was going on. And it wasn't really until the next year that I decided to talk to the doctor. I actually sent a message to the service to say, it was on the Ask My GP thing when it was first starting, and I said, I think I'm going mad. I really honestly, I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to carry on doing all of this. And I don't really talk about it as well. I don't really at the time. So you're probably thinking, Vicky never said that to me. But I didn't really say it to anybody. And that's where a steep learning curve happened, was you got to talk about what's going on for you. For a counsellor's been qualified for like 10 years or so, I was like, yeah, I really need to talk about what's going on for me, because it actually helps. So yeah, there's a bit of an eye at the end there. But it worked, and I feel I'm much better for it. I have to be really careful with how much energy I expend in a day, and the recharge at the end. So resting overnight and making sure that I don't, because I quite happily start at whatever in the morning, 8, 9, 6, whatever time I get up, and then keep doing things right until the point where I'm sitting in bed, and I'm still doing something as well. I'm either reading a book, or I'm watching something on Netflix, or I'm texting, or my brain is constantly going, and I've never really given it a break since I can remember. So learning to switch off has been really important, and walking, I think, is an amazing thing to help you do that, because if you do think, it's just sort of a little rumble in the back of your brain. You're not kind of like, oh my god, there's all this going on. It just sits there, and then all of a sudden I'm noticing that how amazing the day is, or the view, or thinking about how I can't wait to get out of this rain because I'm wet and cold and I want to go home.
But I think something that you touched on there, I think was really important, that very often people, I don't know who these people are, but people don't recognize that as much as you're out there helping people do it in your job, and I know that myself, that they forget about the person's, or they don't need to remember that, but we can sometimes forget about our own mental health and our own resilience or lack of resilience, or link that to physical health and how that impacts on your mental health. And I think it's a really good point about that support system. What's in place for your support system? We need not only do we need a support system, friendship group, and team support, we also need emotional support. And because we are carrying such a huge burden, some of the stories that you and I hear on a day-to-day basis are horrific, and most people wouldn't be able to cope with that, but yet we just almost take it in our stride.
Yeah And then normalize it as well, because in my mind it was normal to have somebody on your mind. But what I've learned is, I suppose it is, isn't it? You develop a relationship with someone, you're going to think about them. But it's not necessarily about not thinking about them. It's about how you kind of put that to one side, and then I suppose it's that recharging the batteries thing.
But is it that you put them to one side, or is it that, and I think that's that important part of being a therapist, is that bit about, you don't actually put them to one side. What you do is you manage that situation. So, and you said about putting things in the norm, and Mike, you must get, you hear stuff from us, and you're part of the charity, but there's that bit where we don't you and I, Vicky, as a practitioners, do not live in the norm. There's no norm about what we do. And the only sense of it is the norm of building relationships with people that are vitally important to them and to us, to be able to help people get well. That's the norm. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You and I have a really close relationship, probably closer than most people. And I have a very close relationship with you as well, Vicky. But it's like, either way, our relationship is different in different ways, because I support you both in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm still doing, in a sense, my job. Does that make sense? So when does your job end and your and you begin. I know that sounds strange. I don't know how to describe that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a bit like you and your buildings. Where did your business end and where do you belong?
I was going to ask Vicky, you talked about switching off and learning to switch off. How do you switch off? What's your kind of go-to?
I like to immerse myself in a different world, I suppose. I have a you're gonna think this is so funny. I absolutely love watching apocalyptic end of world scenarios, zombie films, stuff like that. And I quite happily sit through a whole series, binge, they call it binge watching. I don't do that very often because I don't have the time, but and I have to kind of be quite boundaried with, rigid with myself. No, don't watch it because not another episode. You need to go to sleep now. Or, you've got to do the washing up. Come on, and
but if that works for you, that works.
Yeah, I just really love it.
It's very similar actually. I will watch a TV series or a film or something, and that's just a way of, it's just immersing yourself in a different world. I think I'm the same.
I think I ride horses and I like cooking programs.
I like cooking as well.
Yeah, and I like cooking.
I'll read recipes. That's another thing I like to do. Is
yeah. I like a recipe.
Salivate.
I imagine myself cooking it and eating it. Well, that'd be or who I would feed.
It's a great way of dieting.
And then it's like window shopping. Then I don't feel the need to necessarily go ahead and do that because as much as I want to entertain people and invite people around, my life isn't really kind of set up for that. And because I'm often in and out working and kids coming in and out back from uni, now they're gone again. This one needs me to take this somewhere, and even just meeting up with my friend James has proven to be quite a challenge between his commitments and my commitments, and there's never a weekend that we seem to match, and if we do, something sabotages it, like me forgetting to actually organize myself and go and see him like I said I was going to. But it kind of it satiates something. It's like window shopping. But I do enjoy the cooking and I love the process of cooking, but I'm not big on baking. My cakes are pretty awful and they tend to be stodgy, and banana bread I can pretty much do because that's meant to be stodgy. So anything else kind of just no.
So you talked quite a lot you talked a lot about not having much time, but very recently you completed a Tough Mudder.
I made time for training.
Tell us about that whole journey.
Did I show you that bruise I had on my arm? I don't know if you saw it.
I thought you were trying to show your muscles then. No, I wasn't sure what was going on.
They've gone a little bit. I've had a couple of weeks where I haven't been able to get to the gym as much, but and also a week off on holiday, so that doesn't help. But I had this enormous bruise here that came up on the day, and it lasted for about 3 weeks, and I loved it. I wish I took
So tell us about what made you decide to do a Tough Mudder and that kind of journey through training and on the day how you felt. Tell us all about that if you can.
Oh, I could bore you to tears with it. And so the reason why I did it, I've always wanted to do it. Ever since I watched The Krypton Factor as a kid. I don't know if you know The Krypton Factor, Mike.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've never seen it, but yeah.
And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know, all right.
And The Krypton Factor had a section in it. I think it was the last challenge that they did was the obstacle course, and it was designed by the army, I think, and they had these kind of like army training people there, sergeants. It's colour sergeants that do the training. I don't know. Anyway, these guys would be like, "Come on, you get up over." They'd be telling people how to do it, and they'd be climbing over the rigging, and they'd be going through tunnels and underneath barbed wire and stuff. And I thought, I've always wanted to do that. And then what else did I see on the TV that inspired me? I actually saw Tough Mudder. I think it was when it first started, and they used to televise it on a Sunday morning, people doing Tough Mudders in various locations around the world. And I thought, I'd really like to do that. That looks really fun. And I always told myself, I'd never be able to do it because I'm just not fit enough, strong enough. To be fair, my arms definitely weren't strong enough, but the rest of me was okay. So the actual process of doing the training was hard, but then I asked a friend at the gym who helped me out and gave me some workouts and showed me, and they actually really helped. It's funny, the thing with training, what I've learned is it's not just going at it like lifting the heaviest weights possible as many times as possible. It's actually quite there's an art to it. So yeah, that helped, and I felt really strong. Then I went on a holiday for 2 weeks, and that kind of went it was bad timing. And then I came back and then got COVID just before I was meant to do the Tough Mudder. So yeah, so on the Wednesday I was like, oh, I really don't feel very well. I'm sat at work thinking I was sneezing and my nose is running a bit, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't feel too great. So mask on, and that was quite good because it soaked it all up, you know. And
Nice.
and then by the end of the day, I was thinking, I feel really ill. So I went home, went to bed. And Thursday, I felt really rough, back at work again, mask, and thinking if I feel like this tomorrow, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this because I just felt so ill. And then on the Friday, I felt a bit more chirpy, a bit more up together. And I thought, well, if I get a good night's sleep tonight, because one of the things with COVID is you just don't sleep. You're so tired, but can't sleep. So I was literally awake for about 48 hours. Still managing to work. See, when I say that, I just think, no wonder you kind of get ill, Vic. I feel burned out sometimes, because it's normal for me to just keep going. But yeah, I've actually had a really good night's sleep on that Friday, and felt ready for it on the Saturday. I had a little bit of a cough, but nothing major. And I thought, surely no one will notice that I might have COVID symptoms. And I think I was pretty. The fever had all gone, and I was completely over it by that point. I had it for 5 days. Obviously, 2 days you don't have symptoms, do you? So no, I'm all right. I'm all right. I didn't test, so I don't know. This is me assuming I've got COVID, by the way. And yeah, and I felt really good. And I got there. I was a bit nervous, you know. I was actually petrified and thought, why am I doing this? And I got talking to a few people, and they were sort of saying, oh, actually, I've done no training, but I'm just going to see what happens. And I thought, oh, I've done lots of training, and I still don't feel ready. So that gave me a bit of confidence, and off I went. And what really struck me about the whole experience was how lovely and prepared to help other people were. And I actually said to somebody as we were walking between, so you are supposed to run, but because I didn't know how much energy I actually had, I felt the need to conserve my energy, so that I could make it through some of these quite tough, some of them were quite tough, the obstacles. And
it goes with the name, Vicky.
Yeah.
Tough, is it? Tough Mudder, yeah. And this lady, I was talking to her, and I asked her what she did, and she told me, I can't remember. I think she worked in a factory somewhere towards London, and she was with her colleagues, and there were, like she said, there were 2 groups. So there was the really fit ones that just disappeared, and then there's her and her other colleagues that weren't quite so fit, a bit more like me, and they were kind of all helping each other, and it was just how much we all helped each other. And I said to her, the one thing I've learned today is to actually ask for help, take it, and be grateful for it, because I mean, you know, I hope I don't ever come across as ungrateful, but sometimes don't always recognize where you need to with a bit of gratitude. So that was something I really took away from that day, was helping and being helped. Yeah. And how that kind of bonded everybody just in that moment, maybe just for the 5 minutes that you were crawling through the mud, getting hooked up on a bit of barbed wire and going, oh, can you just unhook me, please? So I just loved it. And at the end of the experience was, I've never felt anything quite like it. I think it must be the adrenaline. And I thought to myself, wow, I can understand why people do things like this all the time, because the adrenaline felt quite addictive. Actually, it was such a good feeling, and I felt so elated and happy, but at the same time I could not concentrate on anything. And I thank God Max came with me, because oh my God, if I had to drive home I would have probably crashed my car. My brain was just all over the place, and I would just sort of start walking in any direction, and then I'd feel him pull on my arm saying, we go this way. Like I needed a carer.
Oh,
Oh, bless you.
that's
And
so
how much
amazing.
money did you raise?
I raised, last time I looked, it was about £700 in total.
Wow,
Well
that's
done.
fantastic. Well
Really
done.
chuffed with that, and I had quite a few clients that I spoke to because I was so excited about it. I couldn't contain myself and told all my clients.
Good.
Then I told them every week for about 6 weeks before I was doing it.
That's so amazing, though. Well done.
Bless him, he gave £50. Oh, what a
Wow.
I was working with, and yeah, so that was really nice. And when I saw that, I said, when next time I spoke to him, I said, "Thank you so much." I almost felt embarrassed because it was so generous. I always feel embarrassed when people give me things, and even though there's a part of me that's really like, yeah, I've got something, but at the same time, it's like it's an embarrassment because somebody's actually recognizing something, and I don't feel comfortable with it. I sometimes it's better to be ignored and just you move on. In my mind. So I said to him, and he said, "What you've done for me is priceless." He said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you." So
And how does that feel?
it feels quite shocking that I have that impact. And I always want to displace it out. Oh, it's the charity. Oh, it's it's you, Ange, or it's the people I work with, or it's somebody else do it something, and I automatically do that. But it did feel quite amazing, and just asking for feedback for the charity. I'm the worst person for it to get my clients to. I kind of pick on people that I feel would be comfortable doing it, and I don't want to put someone in a position that they wouldn't feel comfortable to do that. But yeah, everyone that
is that your discomfort or is that their discomfort? Because actually sometimes people who may come over as not confident or may not be competent are often the people that will tell you
how it is,
and also sometimes want to be asked.
Yeah, so I've learned to do that.
Yeah.
I have learned, and I will ask. I mean, maybe not the people that I've just started working with, because that would be a bit too much. But yeah, I've definitely got better at asking, and I will periodically ask 3 or 4 people in the week, and then I'll ask a few others a little bit later to see how many come back. So, because otherwise, if you get everything at once, I'll be overwhelmed. I won't know what to do.
Are you going to do any more challenges?
Yeah, I've signed up for Tough Mudder next year.
Wow, well done.
The 10th of August. Me and Max are doing it.
Are
You'll
you
do it
both
together.
doing it?
Wow.
And anyone's free to join us.
No thanks. Mike, would you like to do a Tough Mudder?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
What does
that discuss that another day.
Privately on Friday when we all get together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really amazing.
The 10-mile one next year, because they're dropping the shorter.
Are they?
Yeah, because they say it's not tough enough.
It's not tough enough.
It's too soft. So I did the
try and do it this year then.
Yeah, you should have done it. You should have done it.
Yeah. But 10 miles, I mean, it's a long way, isn't it? Let's face it. I think it's going to take all day to do that. But Max is like, "What happens if I can't do something?" I said, "You go around it. It's not an issue. You don't have to do everything that they ask you to do." And to be honest, there is one that if it's there next year, I will never, ever do ever again. And that is the electric shock one. No way am I getting myself electrocuted, because it flipping hurts.
I know somebody, I think you and I had a conversation with you that ended up having to go to hospital.
Wow.
Because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I know my heart's okay because I've had it checked quite a few times because of medication I used to be on. They had to check my heart. I used to have regular heart scans. So I'm one of the few people that actually get to see their heart working. It's amazing. And so I've had about 4 or 5 scans on my heart, although it was a few years ago now, but they never found any problems. And so I gave it a try. But honestly, anyone listening to this, if you dip out of the electric shock therapy, it's not therapy at all. It is just pain. And yeah, just don't do it if you don't want to.
I think it's nice to know, because I think sometimes people do have limitations and other people's expectations are put on themselves, don't they? They kind of think, "Oh, I've got to do all of that. I go out, I ride, and lots of people will be jumping and stuff like that. And I think I've reached the point in my life where I go, do you know what? I don't want to jump that 12-foot ditch. I just don't want to do that. I want to actually just
do what you're comfortable with.
I just don't want to do it anymore.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because you want to push your boundaries, but you also don't want to push them so far that you're not going to enjoy what it is you're going to do.
Yeah.
That can be tricky.
Yeah, definitely. And for some people it's the other end of the scale, not ever trying, and then for others it's pushing yourself too hard. So I think I'm a bit more at that push yourself too hard end of the scale. And in some ways I there is a value to that, but at the same time, like you said, Ange, it's important to know your limits. And I just don't want to electrocute myself ever again. So
it's a horrible thing. I remember as a kid, when I was really, really little, there was a plug that didn't have a back on. And it worked in those days, and that's how old I am. And I remember sticking my finger in it. That wasn't nice, and it was horrible.
I remember when my brother, we were younger, actually living in the house that I told you about, been in our family along Burnham Road, and I heard this very strange kind of yelling. Oh, it was a weird noise, and I was like, what's wrong with my brother? And so I went. I thought I'd better go and investigate, make sure he's all right. I think he was about 6 or 7 years old, something like that, and I was about 8 or 9. I was a bit of a little mum then as well, I better go and check, make sure Chris is all right. Anyway, so I go in there and he's lying on his bed and he's kind of shaking, and I thought, oh God, what's the matter with him? And he looked at me with this look on his face and he goes, I just electrocuted myself. And what he'd done, he got his 2 fingers, and in a lamp where you unscrew the bulb and the 2 prongs stick up.
Yeah.
He had put his fingers on the 2 prongs while it was still plugged into the wall, and gave himself a massive electric shock. And, oh my God, he could have died. Luckily, he was just lying in bed when he did it. And I'll never forget that. And it was just really quite scary. But although I did laugh a lot at the same time.
Of course, as sisters do. Yeah, we laugh at their brothers.
I did laugh at him. Oh, yeah. And I suppose I didn't think that actually that could have killed him. It's only as an adult now, looking back on it, that he was quite lucky, really.
But as a child, you don't think like that, do you? You just think, actually, I'm just going to do that. You don't.
Yeah.
Fear isn't quite as important, is it, when you're younger? I like to go skiing. You watch these 2 and 3 year olds just flying down a mountain with not a care in the world.
Well, I was with a friend in Bristol a few weeks ago, and we were watching people going down the hill. Is it St Paul's or White Ladies? Not St Paul's. Yeah. White Ladies Road. Yeah. So on these scooters, and literally bombing down these hills on these little 2. Well, they're not that little, are they? They're quite big. The ones that they hire. And I just think, imagine if that person just stepped back, or I have all these thoughts in absolutely everything. I think that goes with the territory when you're a parent. It was scary, and then at the same time I was talking to my son George, and he's just been to Sri Lanka, and I asked him about the traffic in Colombo, and I said, what's it really like? And he goes, honestly, he says, you if you drove like that here, you'd die. And then he said, and if you drove like we do here, there, you'd die. So, it's just about, that's normal for that environment, and anything goes, really. But he said everyone drives them about 6 inches apart from each other, but it works on the whole, I guess. Well, it was all right for him, he survived.
We were like that in Bangkok. We got off the aeroplane, came out of the thing, got in a taxi to go to our hotel, and I was like, my mouth was open. I was like, are you seriously? It was like there was people, the whole family on a scooter with the chickens, the dogs, 25 balloons. It was just out of my comfort zone. I just didn't know. I'd never experienced. And to cross the road, you had to just cross, and they would stop, and they would let you through. But that's how they did. And if you didn't, you'd be stood there all day, all night. You would never get across the other side of the road because there was no like tunnels to go under. You just had to go. Yeah. And I had to, Dave grabbed my hand and said, come on, we're going. I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill me.
It's interesting you say that, because that thing about crossing the road, it's when I'm in Europe, I'm always stopping. You know, I automatically stop at a zebra crossing, anywhere, or even just on the side of the road. And yeah, other people, they're walking past. I'm like, oh. Anyway, so I walk over the road, and somebody stops for you. You turn around and say thank you. And it's taken me a long time to stop saying thank you to everybody for stopping, because it's normal in Europe to stop and allow a pedestrian to cross the road. Whereas you do that here, you take your life in your hands. So you're really grateful for not being slowed down on the zebra crossing.
I still say thank you wherever I am in the world. You were going to say something, Mike.
No, I was just going to add, it's a bit like British people just constantly saying sorry for everything.
Yeah.
I was in Paris the other week with a friend of mine, and it was every 30 seconds he would say sorry to somebody because he'd moved out their way, or you know, there was a man coming through a parcel. It's all sorry, I mean your way, and you just think you're not in their way at all. You're just walking down the road like a normal person. But it's very British to be sorry for this, sorry for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so sorry. Thanking everybody for stopping the road.
That's it.
We're beacons.
we're just very polite people. I remember I went to Eastern Europe, went to Lithuania a couple of years ago, and I would always walk into a shop and go labas, which is hello, and the people that I were with were like, why do you keep doing that? I'm like, that's normal. You walk in a shop and say hello. No, we don't do that here. and it's not please can I have a coffee? It's coffee. And you think there's just no politeness at all.
But the statement that you made just a minute ago that we're very polite, I don't think we are. I think some of us are very polite. Yeah. Some of us are not very polite. And I think, it's about who do you want to be as an individual rather than follow a crowd in a certain way, isn't it? It's quite brave to be able to, like I've said loads of times, I say good morning to everybody or good afternoon or whatever. When I ever pass somebody in the street, that's what I do. I've always done it, and I hope that I'll always do it. But some people think I'm a weirdo, including my children, I hasten to add. But it's like, that's who I am. And I don't want to follow, say, their values. No, I want to have my own values and stick to them. But it's knowing that it's okay. It takes a lot of courage to be.
It does, to be you. Yeah.
And it's interesting because that links in with what George said the other day about being in Sri Lanka and the cultural stuff as well. And he says, wow, he says, I didn't realize quite how much I spoke my mind until I was around people that wasn't a cultural norm. You don't say anything. You conform, and even down to something small like being offered a lemonade. So he'd already had a lemonade, and then they said Nadia's family said to him, would you like another lemonade? And he said, oh yes please, because he wanted another lemonade. But then afterwards he learned, after a few kind of looks and frowns, and that you don't say yes to the second lemonade, because that is just a politeness. They don't actually want you to have that lemonade, and you're meant to refuse it. And of course he didn't know that, and it just made me laugh a bit. It's funny, but it's funny. It's just the way that that family, or that where Nadia's from, that how they do things, and every nation has their own oddities, and I think part of our oddity is the sorry thing. I think that is quite universal among British people. Some people I think don't say sorry enough, but I think we, as a whole, a generalisation, there is that bit. And I remember being in Brighton, I found this cartoon book, and it was about the experience of being British. It was so funny, and I opened it to a page, and there was just this whole page of people in different situations going, sorry. I wish I bought it now because it was so funny, and I made me laugh.
Oh, bless you.
I went back and I couldn't find it.
Damn it. we have come to an end, haven't we? Because I'm just aware of time and various other bits and pieces.
Taken up an hour of your time.
I was actually enjoying that. I've got so
we can do it again. We can do it again.
So you need to tell lots of other people to come on our podcast then, Vicky.
Yeah, I can advertise it.
Yeah, we are always looking for people. So, if you know anybody, just give us a shout. And the question is...
Yes, we always ask everyone the same question, which is, what's your goal for the next 12 months?
Oh, my goal for next... Well, I've just signed up to do a new course.
Okay.
Just to complete that course. So I'm doing a diploma. Young people's diploma, counselling young people, and so that finishes sort of May, June time next year. So that's not quite a year, but
that's still a goal for the next 12 months. I think that's exciting.
To do the Tough Mudder and get as fit as I possibly can, so that I can actually do 10 miles. Oh my god, I think I'm
mad.
But not the electric shock one. That I'm not doing. But
anything else?
But I'll do some sort of exercise as I go around. So. Anything else? I think that's quite a lot. Anything personally? Personally, yeah, it's not I suppose it's not for me, but I would love my kids to be happy with what they're doing, and also to get to George's graduation. That's another thing, but that's not my goal. That's his, isn't it? So, but to be there, that's important. And I don't know when the date is, so it's going to be July. So
sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great.
You've been brilliant.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. See you soon.